Hello and welcome to another episode of Literary Gladiators, the show where we discuss and debate literature in all of its forms. If it's written work, it's game. Let's meet the panel.
Hello, I'm Larry.
And I'm Charlie.
And I'm Josh. And today we are going to be going over the first Nick Adams short story that Ernest Hemingway wrote. And in particular, we're going to be going over Indian Camp, which you can find in this collection. The discussion starter I have for this is... Indian Camp is the first Ernest Hemingway story to feature Nick Adams. In this story, he is a child accompanying his father that is helping a native or American Indian deliver a baby. Do you feel that this story establishes Nick Adams' character in a way that can be reflected in upcoming stories?
Wow.
That's a tough one, because I'm not too familiar with Nick Calloway as a character.
Nick Adams.
Is it Adams?
Yes.
See, I'm not familiar. But I would say that...
I'm not swinging this.
I think you're mixed. Caraway is Great Gatsby.
Oh, yeah, you're right. That's what I'm doing. But anyway, I would say that it gives us a little look inside him. The story is not about him so much until the very end.
Mm-hmm. Asking all those questions.
But we get, and pondering the answers. But I think, we get a little taste of who he could be.
I think we also get a great sense of who Hemingway becomes, because you do see a lot of his aesthetics as far as a forward, powerful, strong male dominant character who pretty much he sees himself as the way that he looks upon the American Indian people. It's just very. It almost feels like he's. It's not very. It doesn't seem. He doesn't see them as equals, which I mean that's during that period of time too. Mm-hmm. But still, the way he's doing the delivery, and he says that it's not when he said something about the pain that's been, like it's...
he tunes out the pain or something?
Well, the cries aren't important.
Yeah, the cries aren't important, and he doesn't have anesthetic either, so it is definitely much more painful to watch. Mm-hmm. And it's much more painful for the mother.
A million times.
And the father as well.
And the father.
But I think... I don't know if that's because of I think that he's looking at things as a doctor. I think he can't allow himself to get emotionally involved in the situation that he's in because he's got to think clinically.
Yeah. He's got to work with what he has. He doesn't have the mess. There's no 21st century medical imaging back then. There was he only had he had a small handkerchief full of supplies. That was basically it.
But I think this also gives Nick the experience of watching birth and death.
Yes, in very short order.
Yes, yeah. And it's and I think that develops his view on what he's going to have to endure through his experiences as far as that kind of short order circumstance is concerned.
Yeah, it's interesting. We know that Hemingway's own father would go on to kill himself, and also two of his sisters. At least one died from suicide, the other one died. But all this after this story was written, so it's very, very foreshadowing for his real life. It's strange. It's very strange, where he's writing about suicide like this, so close to his father, or the character's father.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Basically, witnesses the suicide, and then, while he's helping this mother to give birth, the father cuts his throat in the bed, which is, obviously devastating
to anybody, but still, yeah, and to a small child.
Yeah, but then and then to have your father actually kill himself, I mean. I don't know what to say about it other than how strange
it happens. So, the way it's laid out, it happens so randomly. But you could see
Well,
There's could be.
I think it ties back to that line about the cries not mattering. It's like they do matter,
Mm.
you know, because I think that the father of this
Bedside
child,
manner, check minus.
of this newborn baby, you know, feels is, you know, everybody in the room is moved by these cries. The men, all the men, had to get away because of the cries. The women, every time she cries, they all shuffle and they don't, you know, everybody's uncomfortable with this with these screams that she's emitting because of the fact that the child is reversed.
Mm-hmm.
And the father, I think, couldn't take it. I think that's.
I mean, back then, childbirth was a much more intense process. I mean, it still is, but to the, those that were delivering could die through childbirth much more likely back then than they do now.
Yeah, and you also had.
Well, especially when you're doing a C-section with a jackknife.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if it, I mean, again, there was a little bit of, they said something about, oh, I'll put peroxide in it later. I mean, you got to keep, sterilization was not really what it is now, where, I mean, he washed his hands. That's something we get a good, you know,
That's
that was very
a lot of instances that where the child dies right away or the newborn has to do with the fact that hand washing techniques were poor. People didn't wash their hands.
And he even said he was satisfied after. I think something along the lines like he was satisfied how his hands looked, or I'm misquoting it probably, but you get a good sense of okay, he knows that even though I'm in this, I don't want to say primitive, but in a way it is primitive environment.
And then he asked the uncle to move the blanket because he doesn't want to touch it after he washes his hands.
Because I don't think he had gloves.
Right.
So there you go. There's cross-contamination.
Yeah.
And I'm no medical specialist, believe me, I'm not. It's just common sense sometimes. But
well, it wasn't always.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you had, I think, what another thing to do with hot boiling water.
Mm-hmm.
Hot water helps also with childbirth too. I think a lot of midwives use hot boiling water. For what? I don't even remember. Probably to sterilize things too. But you know, partially. Yeah. I don't know how babies are born. I'm sorry. I'm on the stork theory still.
Stork theory.
So one the other day, I'm like, oh, there's a stork.
I think that ultimately this is a quintess. If you want to get a sense of how Hemingway writes, I think that this is a very easy way to see that reflection. It's only 5 pages, especially in my version, and you get a sense of his
style,
his attitude toward others, and
he didn't pull any punches.
I think more so if he couldn't relate to them, it almost felt like they were. He didn't make any effort to do so.
Okay.
Well, who? You gotta be. I mean, like, there's different characters in the story.
The way that he wrote women, the way he wrote minorities.
Oh, you're talking about Hemingway.
Yes, Hemingway. Because I don't think that the American Indians in here were really, to him he saw them as lesser.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
And
I don't think you really substantiated it.
I just don't think. I think the way that the way that he approached the circumstance, it didn't feel like, it felt like he was dealing more with a different kind of medical work.
Yeah. Like almost this is below me, right?
Not it's yeah.
I don't want to say
that
that.
sense. I didn't get that sense. I just took him as a doctor.
Yeah.
Doctors are very often detached.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, they didn't. Did they make mention to any like anybody that's trying to comfort the? Because usually there is somebody there to comfort the mother
and give instructions.
Or
push.
Or to
push what?
Rather than just. I mean, part of it is clinical, but there's another part of it that has to acknowledge that the mother is just as much a human as he is.
Yes, and she is basically she's the vehicle in a way for this child to be born, and you know, it doesn't really talk about that. How it says something about how she just looked up and smiled. Well, that's something a human would do: smile or frown. Humans cry. Humans they experience pain. They experience love, and you know this is all basic common sense. But no, there was no. And now that you mention it, I'm really getting like whoa. And I read this a few times, and you know, like you said too, that there's or the clinical side, you know, doctors, but then again, they're doctors, just like any in a lot of other professions, EMS, police, fire, they see a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff. So I guess in a way that's like a coping mechanism, besides drinking. But
he had absolutely no bedside manner.
That's what I was saying. But bedside manner, check minus. You don't have bedside manner, I'm not going to you.
Yeah, well, I mean, he did go.
Yeah.
Who went?
Yeah, but doctors also take the oath that they will do no harm, blah, 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 blah. But
Yeah,
still,
I mean, I don't think that wasn't his intent. I know he had good intentions.
Oh, definitely, I give him
but
that.
it was just...
Well, yeah,
He can have my plate of cookies.
Lots of doctors have bad bedside manner.
I know a few.
You can't really, I don't think judge like that. I don't think that's
No, I
fair.
understand. Yeah, right. And I've experienced some doctors who were phenomenal, wondrous, will do literally anything to advocate for their patient. I've also had some doctors where I'm not going to say on camera, but
yeah. Yeah, no, I mean,
I'm a drummer for a reason. You know, I walk around with these for a reason.
Doctors are very often criticized for a lack of bedside manner.
Yeah.
And based on one depiction of one account of one
You can't hold
doctor,
the rest of it accountable. That's
you don't know whether this was racially motivated or if that's just how he was as a doctor. You don't know.
It wasn't racially... It wasn't... I mean, he wasn't intent... But I think he just had the mindset of the time.
True.
And he had the mindset of what I felt Hemingway had.
Yeah.
Because you see that a lot in what he's written.
Right.
You see that in what was the work that something we went over in season 12.
To have and have not.
To have and have not.
Yeah, but that was because I don't know.
Feels like White Elephants.
These are characters.
I love elephants.
I
love elephants.
Yeah, it's just that kind of. You could see it in the Snows of Kilimanjaro.
That's what I was gonna say.
What other works do you see?
I disagree. I don't see it. I think that he deserves to be treated charitably. Hemingway is a great writer.
He is.
And
I
mean,
I'm not saying he's not a bad writer because
but I mean
he does have good work.
To say that he's got certain attitudes. I mean, these are not main characters. These are you're talking about. Like in that book, how many pages is that character in there that you had a problem with in The Have and Have Not? Like, what was he in the story for, like 5 pages?
I think it was multiple occasions.
Well, the one that I remember you pointing out was he wasn't the main character. He's just, somebody on the way to the story. So, I've never noticed it.
But they played it. It was a character that played a pivotal role.
Not really. He was just, he was just there, and whether people can play a pivotal role in the story without being the main character.
It was one of the more. It was a character. It felt like it was a character that was in more than 5 pages of the book for sure. But
I don't think so.
I think we also, myself included, need to read a little bit more of Hemingway's works in order to get an understanding. Because I'm going to be flat out honest.
I do want to read more of Hemingway's works. I do think,
only...
as it stands, his short works to me have been better than his longer works.
Yeah. I haven't read too many Hemingways, and that's something I really need to amend. I really want to read more Ernest Hemingway.
Sure, if you want to. You don't have to.
No, I want to.
He's one of my favorites.
No one's holding a banana to my head saying, you gotta eat this banana or read Ernest Hemingway. I want to read more Hemingway. That way we do get a better understanding of his style, his views.
I think you'd rather just about do anything than eat a banana.
Well, that too, exactly. But still, I think we would get a better... I think we'd be more... I think we have a better understanding. There, I said it. Boom, mic drop.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I've read a lot of Hemingway, and
I need to read a little bit more. I read...
If you want to. I mean, I think he's a good writer.
Yeah, tragic. Like Edgar Allan Poe, he had a tragic life.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's get back to that. Talking about, like, with the initial thing that you were talking about, where Nick is a stand-in for Hemingway, perhaps. The one area that I really see that struck home for me when you said that was at the end of the story when he talks about how he feels like he's never going to die.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was a part of Hemingway's life.
And wasn't that the last sentence? the
He had a
last
real,
sentence.
yeah.
Gee, I wonder
He
why
felt
that's
like he
there.
would never die.
Yeah.
Probably because Hemingway never felt that way at some point in his early life, because the way he lived was very reckless.
When you're younger, you have that sense of being filled with life, and that
True.
nothing is going to bring you down.
Yeah, it is interesting how at one point.
Well, if you
know,
tell me
in
I can't
all
go
of
to
our
Chuck E.
lives-
Cheese, of course I'm going to be brought down, no matter what age I'm at.
But and it also, I mean, he only knows so much growing up. I mean, this
He's
is
just a little kid.
yeah, this is a new experience of birth and death, and the fact that what would cause him to want to kill himself, or what would cause,
Yeah.
young kids aren't in their right state of mind, aren't thinking.
They don't have the,
about
they
that
don't
at
have
all.
a, they
About
don't have
suicides.
yeah.
God
There's-
forbid.
yeah, and you're right. And there's no capacity. Mental. Every person has what's called a mental capacity. Coming from the legal guy, but you know, capacity can also become diminished, not just because of events, but just by time itself. And you know, yeah, you're right. Kids sometimes they have that I'm on top of the world, and as they get older, things.
It's when they're
Reality
exposed
sets
to
in.
different life experiences.
Yeah, like I mean, that's what I was thinking about when reading this too. Is that there comes a point in everybody's life where they come face to face with their own mortality for the first time. And I don't remember mine. I don't remember when I first realized that I was going to die, or thought about it. You know, I don't remember that, but it had to happen. And for Nick, you know, he kind of comes into that, and then immediately rejects it. You know, the idea like
Yeah.
that's a
Like,
chance
nah.
for him.
I'm young. I'm healthy.
I'm not gonna.
My
I'm
dad's a
never gonna
doctor.
die. He said.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you see how Hemingway lived his life. You know, he was in helicopter crashes. He was a correspondent during the Spanish Civil War. He drove an ambulance in
Oh, Lord, right there.
World War One.
Yeah.
You know, people say he had a death wish, and you know, so yeah, like I definitely could see why you would say that Hemingway, from that perspective, and you know, thinking about it too, what you're talking about, like, you know, how Nick is kind of detached from the whole situation, even as a young child. You know,
And normally, young children don't help dad, who's a doctor, help
Yeah,
deliver a baby.
that's true.
Like XYZ miles off somewhere.
yeah,
When you're younger, your perspective on empathy and pain is a little bit different. It's not there's instances where you can feel bad, but they have to be evident. Like, I mean, you feel pain and sadness when it pertains to you, and if when it comes to somebody else, you can feel it if it's like crying. A young child may be able to respond, may be able to connect to as far as sadness is concerned,
They'll sometimes.
but not necessarily like he wouldn't be able to. He doesn't really grasp the idea of going into labor.
Right. And I.
but and the gore of it, he doesn't want
Oh, well,
anything to do with.
I mean, when he sees the image, when he sees the physical image,
He turns away, and that even
Yeah.
his father was saying, "You don't have to look. You don't have to look." You know, that's again, that's not only a doctor who cares, but that's a father who cares too.
Yeah.
It's just you're not ready for this now. You know, I know I'm not, but still. And
Yeah.
I was going to say too with
But he ultimately leaves it up to Nick too.
Yeah.
He's like, no,
you don't have to. Meaning,
Yeah.
it's up
You
to
can if you want to.
Yeah, but I was also going to say, going back on that empathy thing, a lot of kids, especially really young kids, they I feel they do have empathy, but sometimes they just don't know it, or they don't know how to express it properly.
yeah, it's a bit
It's
different.
it's
than-
usually it's like, why is it always my fault? And I still say the same way as a grown child, but from my point of view, if I may, real quickly, in first grade, I noticed an older kid crying. She was like 3 or 4 years older on the recess field. What did I do? I walked up to her and said, "Why are you crying?" I'm eating the wood chips, you know, trying to make her laugh, and she said, "Oh, they were mean to me." But that was just my own empathy for her, and I felt like, well, that shouldn't have happened. So I did what any kid my age, like I did what I would normally do: eat more wood chips and go over there and say, "Hey guys, knock it off! While I'll beat you with my drumsticks," and they did. And I don't know what happened after that, but
Okay.
that's just an isolated incident.
Yeah.
So
Do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah,
I'm hungry.
wanted to finish what I was saying about Nick. In that moment, when he says that, I think that may lend credence to what you were saying. about looking at the Indians as lesser is that in that moment, right after the father of this newborn Indian child takes his own life, he's rejecting his own mortality in a way because of the fact maybe that it is an Indian.
Okay.
And it is an alien, to him, an alien kind of person.
I see.
So maybe there's something to what you're saying, Josh.
Oh,
So
makes sense.
I'll give you that.
All right.
Okay.
Alrighty then.
So-
Was there anything else that we wanted to go over?
I
Nope.
think that was.
Alrighty then. If you are interested in reading Indian Camp and Ernest Hemingway's other short stories, here is a collection. This includes most of what he has written, and it is quite a hearty collection, I would say. Be sure to join us next time for another episode of Literary Gladiators. For now, keep reading.
And have a cookie for me.